How's it going, everybody? This is Dominic Minchella. I am the Kansas City Chiefs co-beat writer for On SI and the host of the Kansas City Chiefs Insider Podcast. Thank you guys so much for stopping in today as we approach a very big game for the Kansas City Chiefs in Week 11 against the Denver Broncos, who currently sit in first place in the AFC West division with an 8-2 record. As we know, the Kansas City Chiefs, they hold a 5-4 record through 9 games competed in. Last week in Week 10 was the Chiefs' bye week, and this might be working in their favor when they go into Denver, taking on the Broncos, who went up against the Las Vegas Raiders in Week 10 and really put up kind of a pitiful performance, escaping the Raiders by 3 points by the final score of 10-7. Now, I understand that you can't really compare teams. I've seen a whole lot of saying, winning teams just have to beat who's ever on the schedule. And for the Broncos this season, they have had a lot of teams to where they haven't really been competitive altogether. I believe a handful of their opponents that they have beaten or that have been on the schedule today, if you combine their wins and losses, they have way more losses than they do wins on the season collectively. That kind of spells as to why the Broncos have a very good record. But at the end of the day, you can't look at that going into a game as big as this. Really, this game could define and move forward whether or not Kansas City is still a contender for the AFC West, or if they're going to have to hope that they can win a wild card position to get into the playoffs. Now, I say that because there's still a long time to get into this into the playoffs, since there's a whole second half of the campaign. But still, this game is pretty big. And they've got a pretty good asset on their side, the Kansas City Chiefs, that is, as Patrick Mahomes, quarterback for the Chiefs, has a very good record against the Denver Broncos in his career and has a performance like no other against a very good division rival. So I thought for today's podcast, we would dive into how well Patrick Mahomes has done in his career against Denver, kind of breaking things down year by year as courtesy of as Sports Reference, Stat Head Football. Now, we're just going to be talking about the regular season performances because obviously the Broncos and the Chiefs have yet to play in the playoffs, at least in the time that Patrick Mahomes has been donning a Chiefs uniform. But in his career, Patrick Mahomes has been an elite performer against Denver, whether they be playing on the road or at Arrowhead. Through 14 games, he holds, and I guess the whole Chiefs as an organization with Mahomes starting, holds a 13-1 record with 332 completions and 499 attempts of passes. So you have to think about this. Since 2017, where Patrick Mahomes did play one game against the Broncos in 2017, to 2024, obviously going into this season, it'll be different. But it has been a long ride for Mahomes to really learn how this the Broncos defense operates and how is the best way to go about defeating them with the offense that he has. Especially this year, there's a lot of different offensive opponents or components rather, who are going to help Mahomes out, whether that be the wide receivers, tight end, Travis Kelce, you name it. Even the offensive line knows their goal going into this game is to defeat Denver and put themselves in a position to move up in the AFC West division. But in his career, Mahomes has 3,771 passing yards, 20 touchdowns thrown, and 11 interceptions. Now, his best seasons against the Broncos came back in 2018, which was his first season as the starting quarterback, where he threw in 607 passing yards across 2 games and 5 touchdowns with only 1 interception. He did get sacked 3 times, but if you're taking those numbers on the positive side, I would rather look at those than how many times he got taken down. You got to keep in mind, regardless of how many times Patrick Mahomes has been sacked by the Broncos, he still holds 13 wins over them in his career. The second best season that he had, and really the best season altogether that he had in terms of passing yards, was 680 in 2022 in 2 games, 57 completions and 84 attempts. But in those 84 attempts, the more you throw the ball, the more you're at risk for interceptions. And it shows, because that season has a blemish with 4 interceptions on the doctrine, but also only 2 quarterback sacks. But the past 2 seasons, and what I think is very important to note going into this game, is that from 2023 to 2024, Patrick Mahomes has been sacked 9 times in 3 games against the Broncos. As we know, he only played in 1 game last season against the Broncos because the 15-2 record warranted Mahomes a day off in Week 18, where the Broncos defeated the Chiefs 38-0. So that has nothing to do with Mahomes, but still, that's just an outlier in this scenario. 9 sacks for an offensive line who has improved this season. They have shown a little bit of hiccups going back to their 2024 days. But with having a top center in the league in Creed Humphrey, you've got Trey Smith, there's a whole lot of players, and I'm looking forward to seeing Josh Simmons and Kingsley Suamataia perform very well, or at least hopefully, because Suamataia has been one of the most consistent players, at least in terms of snaps, and Josh Simmons is returning from his hiatus from the franchise. But all in all, I think that Patrick Mahomes has a very, very good track record against the Broncos, and it should be one that motivates and encourages Chiefs Kingdom to know that they're going to go into Denver with a mindset that they can beat them. We've seen it so many times over, and it could easily happen once more. One thing about Mahomes, though, when going up against the Broncos in his career, is that he hasn't really been running the ball as much. His biggest season came in 2021, where he collected 66 rushing yards in 2 games and 13 attempts. However, with Isaiah Pacheco maybe still week to week, Kareem Hunt is obviously going to be getting a majority of the handoffs, so long as Mahomes doesn't do it himself. We've seen that a lot this season. I wouldn't be surprised if he wants to scramble a little bit. This is a big game, and I think Patrick Mahomes is going to understand that and want to capitalize on this by making it the Mahomes magic show. But so long as he does that, the receivers, his assets, have to be ready to be able to get that football from him. That's the best way you're going to be able to beat Denver. They've had spurts where they can be a very explosive offense, but they've also had spurts where they can be kind of mute on the offensive side of the ball. And if they're mute at home, you have to take advantage of it. And Patrick Mahomes has shown that in his career. Last season is the most recent that we have to look at. Mahomes had 28 completions in 42 attempts in the 1 game against the Broncos, which they ended up winning, thankfully, due to a blocked field goal attempt, which would have given the Broncos the lead easily. In that game in 2024, he did get sacked 4 times. So really what I'm looking for in this season against the Broncos, and primarily in this game, is so long as the offensive line can protect Mahomes, you have seen the track record that he can do even when he is under pressure. If he can make himself mobile within the pocket and hopefully target his wide receivers well, I think that this favors Patrick Mahomes and company. As always, folks, be sure you follow me over on X at Dom Minchella. Post and repost every single day. You're not going to want to miss any coverage as we lean into the 2025 version of the Broncos and Chiefs. Week 11 is on the way. You can also follow us at KC Chiefs on SI over on X and Facebook. Everything gets posted there, whether it is statistics, live game threads, gamers, you name it. Kansas City Chiefs on SI is the place to get your Kansas City Chiefs news. As always, Chiefs Kingdom. I'll see you tomorrow. Be kind to one another.